awesome session of the Extraordinary Drinks with Extraordinary People, the virtual happy hour experience with the Drunken Grape. I have a realtor and rapper, or the rapper and realtor here, one of the founding members of Organized Rhyme. This was a sensational hip-hop rap group that came out of Ottawa. I have MC Pin, the personal friend of Tom Green, a great buddy of mine too by coincidence. Ladies and gentlemen, I am your show host, Rob, and we're going to introduce my great friend, Greg Campbell. Greg, how you doing, brother? What's going on?
I'm great, man. Thanks a lot for having me. I love that intro. That was wild. It's funny. The show's called The Drunken Grape. I'm looking at myself while we're doing this. I'm going, do I look drunk right now? I kind of feel like I look like I've been drinking. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just the summer drinks just coming out of my eyes.
Well, that means you've had a good summer. It's it is the virtual happy hour, and if you're watching this, tuning in, make sure to subscribe, like, share this channel. Make sure to reach out to Greg. I'm going to have all kinds of show notes added to this in the description. We're going to feature the rap video at some point. I'm not sure if I'll be able to feature it here live today, but it's going to be added in at the end of the broadcast itself. But Greg, you have a fascinating journey. You're a boy from Ottawa, much like myself. I wasn't born here, but I might as well say I was. I arrived here when I was almost 9 years of age. And really, the bulk of my life has been lived here. So how did you get started? I mean, this journey into rap and real estate is quite an interesting one. You were in show business. Like, you guys hit it big in the 90s. I remember this video was smashing the airwaves.
It's a very long story. We'll condense it quite a bit here. But we just, high school, Colonel By, go Cougars, me and Tom skateboarding. And one day, he just said, I want to do a rap group. Do you rap? And I just honestly I had been rapping for a few years, just kind of on the sidelines. I was doing oral presentations in middle school to help me get over my fear of talking in front of people, which is hilarious, and it worked. So I went to his house and we started laying down some tracks pretty much instantly and performing at talent shows. Christmas concerts. I think that was our first one, the Christmas concert. Yeah.
Tom Green as well. Didn't he have a show on Rogers cable TV where he was up to no good and mischief? And were you part of that as well? Because that was hilarious.
Yeah. So when we went through the process of the group from beginning to finish, having our little bit of celebrity, a little bit of stardom, once that kind of faded, we both went into TV broadcasting. He continued, started the show, and then I moved to Vancouver right after that. So I went to TV broadcasting for 3 days, and then I was like, see you later. Not for me.
Wow. And yet he obviously reached stardom. He's one of Canada's biggest names internationally. There's no question. I always laugh when he's the university guy to Road Trip, the movie. Like, he has some good cameo appearances. I think he was actually featured. Did he not star in a couple Hollywood blockbusters?
He did.
As well?
Yeah.
I mean,
Charlie's Angels was the big one, the first big one.
Yeah, and he ended up with one of the Angels as his wife for a short while, and Drew Barrymore. I mean, this is no small feat. I mean, a madly talented guy, and obviously yourself, madly talented as well. You know, you can sing, you can rap. We're going to talk about your real estate journey in a minute, but you have a song. You're coming back into the music scene, from what I understand.
So when I moved to Vancouver, I produced a lot of groups out there, and I had a couple of projects that I toured with. And this is before social media and stuff, right? So a lot of people would have no idea what it was. My band was Mr. Big Stuff and the Big Stuff Production. And that was
that's awesome.
It was 8, 9, 10, 11 piece, depending on what the show was and how much we could pack in. But we did that from 99 to 2001, I guess. We had some pretty good energy around Vancouver at the time. We won some competitions and stuff. Or sorry, I didn't say we won. We came in close to winning. We were too avant-garde, I think, to win. And then some other projects. And, I just kept doing music out there for years and years. But it was really interesting, just going back to you mentioning the new song, because I never released songs as just me. So I was MC Pin in Organized Rhyme. And then when I was around 18 and I started getting into lifting weights and everything, the name just changed to Big Stuff. And I was thinking of this new project. I was like, do I change, do I go back to do I adapt a different name or something? What is it? And then I was like, you know what? Fuck that. I'm like, the Big Stuff's the name. I'm like, I'm just going to continue with that. People know me as that. And now more people will know me as that. But so now I just, I've been working on this for a while, and I just didn't know what to do as my first single song that like where I'm not in a group. So it's kind of a story of my life in a sense. And just about, it's called Never Enough, and just how like, is it ever enough, and anyways, I'll send it to you when we're done. You'll get a little sneak peek at that.
Very cool.
It'll be out. I'm probably going to drop it for September. I'm going to work on a video. And that's that. So I'm excited for it big time.
You should be. I mean, that's really cool. It's, listen, I think the only musical talent I have is I can dance, thanks to Guyanese's mom, but I have no musical skills outside of that. My late sister could sing. She could play instruments. My brother could play instruments. I've got uncles that were in bands out of Guyana, like calypso music and all sorts of things. And I just have a mad appreciation for musical talent. And I mean, this runs in your family because your wife is a mad singer too. I've seen her perform live, and Anna's voice is just incredible.
Thank you. And she actually sings on the track with me.
That's so cool.
It's cool, man. It's, I have rap parts. I sing, harmonize with her. She sings the hook. It's, it's cool, man. I'm excited about it.
You should be, because she's really soulful. I've seen her in Ottawa sing in front of thousands of people at various functions and events. And this is crazy. I wonder what the kids are going to come out like. These are future Hollywood and megastar celebrities in the making.
We're already working on that. We're working on that. Believe me, they love it. They love it.
So obviously show business is a tough business. It's a tough business to really make a consistent living out of. It's not like the wine and beer world where I'm in, or now where you are in realty, where we're in trades. And if you have the ability to really convey and to sell your message, and you have good knowledge, and you have good charisma, and importantly, a really good work ethic and a personality of determination and persistence, you can really succeed. But show business, it's sort of beyond that. You do read a lot of stories about people who come from the wrong side of the tracks. Look at Oprah Winfrey. We look at Elvis Presley, just to name a few of countless souls. But there's always a stroke of luck that kind of crosses their journey, because it is show business and it is tough. And this is obviously what partly parlayed you into real estate, I would imagine, because this guaranteed you a lot more stability. But since you've done really well with it, and I know that, I think you're a partner at Panda Realty, if I'm not mistaken, in Ottawa, and that real estate machine is really lifting. And it's a great time to be in real estate. We know the market's heated, but we know that the reputation of your firm is very strong. And this must give you the impetus to really get back into the hobby businesses that you love, that could actually turn out to be your future career again. This is the cool part about it.
That's exactly right. It was interesting when I came back from Vancouver. I was just I needed a change. Like you said, entertainment industry, it's one of the worst. I mean, I've seen the good side of it. I've seen the absolute terrible side of it. I warn anybody getting into it just to, be careful and make sure you have the right people around you to navigate it properly. But when I came back, I asked my mom, I said, I just want to see what it's like working with you. Because in my mind, I had that exact thought of you. Like, I'm around people all the time. I'm good with people. It's a people business. And I can somewhat make my own schedule. So if I'm doing some other music stuff on the side still, it gives me that freedom. It wasn't like a 9 to 5 where I would just be burned out and not want to do anything at night, right? Like a lot of people in certain jobs, get into. Yeah. So for that reason, that's why I started, and I was still doing music stuff on the side. I think you might have remember when I had the DJ management company. I was doing Buddha Bar with Brian.
Yeah. You guys were banging out tracks. You had a pretty packed Friday and Saturday night audience. Yeah. You guys did well with that.
So, I was doing that. And then what happened was, of course, I meet Anna and, we get married, and then I'm like, okay, I need to just focus on real estate right now. And of course, once I started focusing on real estate, I'm like, why the hell wasn't I focusing more on this when I started in the business, because you start doing well and your success builds and you keep doing better and growing. And, it turned into where it is now. But like you said, right now, it's given me the freedom to go back to, what my past career was, taking it more along the lines of a hobby. But I love it because it's therapy for me. And the more music that I'm doing, the happier I am, the better father I am, the better husband I am, the better realtor I am, because that part of my head can rest. You know, when I'm not doing music at all, I can become a total basket case and an ass.
Yeah, man. Yeah, fuck. I can relate too. It's looking back and my time with Daytime Ottawa. I had Derek Fage on last week. That show is going to air very shortly. I mean, we always record about a week in advance. This is the nature of show business in a lot of cases. But it's unless you're doing a live broadcast, and that's a tricky beast in itself. And he comes from that background. And we really talked a bit about how to reignite your passion and how to do things. I mean, obviously the pandemic has been disruptive. So for him, what had happened was he had to come back. I think he got shuffled by Bell Media. He's no longer on breakfast television in Montreal, but he's now doing radio again. And he's going to come flying back like a storm. And you have to do things that you love doing to keep the spark going in other ways. For me, being on that set of Daytime Ottawa was great, even though it only dropped down to about 4 or 5 times a year. It was mostly festive occasions. It's like, Rob, come on and talk about Thanksgiving or Easter or Christmas. Or wines of the summer, wines and beer of summer, being a wine and beer sommelier and talking about both of them. But the reason for this podcast, partly, and really it was to showcase extraordinary people like yourselves weekly, you know, where you come across some really unique individuals that have a unique blend of creative talent. For me, it was to really get back and keep that passion ignited about plugging away on the day-to-day, because, you know, hosting virtual tastings, it's a lot of fun, but people don't see all the background work. It's like you were selling houses. They don't see all the calls you have to make. They don't see the emails that go out. Obviously, cold calling is a dead beast. Nobody answers the phone if they don't recognize it anymore. So you have to do things that are creative to really bring yourself out in the media world, which I know you do. You're great at with your podcast. You have your Realty podcast. It kicks ass. You know, you've interviewed myself and other individuals just around the scene of Ottawa. You've done a brilliant job with that. You continue to do so. But it's great to see you also shift back to your roots that really make you happy to drive everything forward. It's kind of like that's like you came back into this triangle and it's like these points. I almost drew a square there for a second, but the triangle, you're getting what I'm saying, right?
Drunken grape. Is it a triangle? Is it a square?
Yeah. We don't know. A circle, maybe. But the thing is, everything just sort of loops back to two connective points.
Yeah. I love it, man. I mean, and that's exactly how it is and how I'm feeling about it right now. And, you know, working with my wife especially is amazing because, you know, I would never be with somebody who, I don't know how to say this properly, but I mean, I can't imagine myself being with somebody for life that wasn't either in the music industry in some aspect of it, right? Because it's just a different appreciation and understanding for how I operate mentally, you know, on a creative level. Like we're very different in certain ways when it comes to how we do it, but we work well together. And just going back to the podcast thing. So we started that and we're going to come up on episode 50 soon.
Wow. And so I'm just getting ready for the happy hour here, but I'm listening.
Yeah, I'm ready too. And I just closed my first deal from my first lead from the show.
That's amazing.
It was super, just fantastic to get an organic lead. They saw me and they were like, we want to work with you. And then we did a Zoom call to do like the interview, but they're like, you don't even need to introduce, like, we know who you are. We want to work with you. I'm like, fucking amazing, right?
Cheers to that. Of course, that's got the Prud'homme Beer Sommelier, certified sommelier. This is cheers.
I'm doing the can. You. Cheers,
that's
buddy.
All right. What do you have there? Right. You got a Pils. You want to tell me a great story about Broadhead, which is in your neighborhood, if I'm not mistaken.
Broadhead is it's a local brewery right in New Orleans. They used to be in Nepean. I remember the first time I went there, it was their location. I can't remember exactly where it was.
Yeah,
but they told me they were moving to Orleans. I haven't been there lately, and I'll be honest, because Pilsners are my favorite beer. So I usually drink a lot of German Pilsners, and I was pleasantly surprised when I saw Broadhead Pilsner, and I was like, okay, I'm like, what's up with this? And I took it home and it's delicious. So this is the local beer that I drink the most of. So Broadhead, hats off to you. Great job. You have a fan.
Wow, cool. And Pilsners come from the town of Pilsen in the Czech Republic. I believe it was Joseph.
Sorry, Czech Republic, yes.
Yes, but it also does move into Bavaria.
To Germany.
So that's where Germany, because that whole area is interlocked and interrelated. I mean, even the hop strains they use, I believe it's noble hops like Saz and Spalt. They've got this grassy, citrusy component to them. They use in these. They use pale malts. And this style really was created in 1842 by a guy named Joseph Groll. He discovered bottom fermentation, so lager style yeasts, which they wouldn't know the active ingredient till 1857 with Louis Pasteur. I always say high five Louis, because that was a massive achievement in the world of brewing. But that style came around in 11 decades, where the Industrial Revolution and the machine of the Industrial Revolution from the 1780s to the 1890s revolutionized brewing. And by the mid 20th century, lagers like you're drinking right now started to become by far the most prevalent style. And I believe today they comprise somewhere about 90% of beers consumed globally or some form of lager, which is incredible. And that's in an industry that's like 750 billion. Like it's it's $750 billion now, the beer industry globally.
That's crazy, man. And I got a good story. I know you said lager, but we're here.
Yes, but it's a form of lager. It actually is a form of lager. Yeah, but it's a hoppier lager. It's a hoppier, richer lager.
That's why you're the guy. I don't know that. I feel ignorant now. But I'll tell you a great story. I got a great story. Yeah, I have. And I'll tell you where I had it with the schnitzel. So everybody knows, oh my God, not Czech bar. Pilsner Urquell.
Yes.
So
that's the originator.
I'm in Prague on my honeymoon. And I have a friend over there, and he's taken to this place called Local. So it's Lokal, I believe. And it's in a whole block. So it's like this long, narrow space, but it goes the whole block, door to door, right? So it's got a couple bars, tables. The way that they charge you is they just have a checkbox, like a sheet. Yeah. And you just check off with each bar. But the interesting thing is that they have lines that run directly from the Pilsner Urquell brewery into the restaurant.
That's amazing.
So, yeah. And they pour it. They have like 9 different ways to pour it or whatever. But I mean, I'm telling you, like when you drink that beer just from the line right from there, it was like mind blowing. It doesn't taste the same after it's packaged, No,
it's always best to have it in a clean draft line for sure with kegs, or drinking right out of cask ale or cask beer. So Pilsner Urquell, I'm going to backtrack, is actually the very first style of that. That is the originator of the Czech Pilsner, the Pilsner worldwide. They are the first. They are the pioneer. Right. And they are a brilliant style. And they use soft water, because the water around the Czech Republic, around the town of Pilsen, is soft water. It doesn't have a high concentration of calcium or magnesium, which this does. So I'm holding on to a pale ale, or an Indian pale ale. I haven't tried this before. Bought it for a friend, Eagle IPA. It's got that nice copper color to it. I mean, you've got your caramel, or what they call crystal malts in the grain bill, along with pale malts. It's not quite what we smell on the nose. It does have some citrus odors to it, aromas. There's a bit of toffee to this. There's almost smells like a bit of white grapes or grapiness in it, which is interesting because typically West Coast IPAs will have a lot of pininess to them. They're like mango, tropical fruit notes. So this style is very different. And the town of Burton that sat on the Trent River, which is now largely unnavigable, sitting on a deposit of gypsum rock, which is super high in calcium and magnesium. So you have hard water, and it creates a harder, more stern style of beer. And it's funny because the IPA was one of those things that it was originally sent off, and they started to really utilize the hops so I could take that nasty voyage from England, going down through hot water and into cold water and up and around into India, and survive the journey, because most of the beer would spoil. And the other irony is it's called Indian Pale Ale, but virtually no East Indians drink it. It's predominantly was a British beverage. And at that point, after porters and stouts, it began to dominate the British brewing scene. So, England has a massive scene in brewing, as does the Czechs and the Germans. So a little bit about that. But Greg, tell us, where can they find you? It is so cool, the whole subject. Cheers to that.
Yeah, you know your stuff, Rob. You know your stuff. That was great.
I mean, this has got a bit of a hop kick, but it's not going to be much hoppier than the pills you're holding in your hand. It's actually pretty mild. It's mild by IPA, North American IPA standards. But I like this original style. It's not as heavily carbonated either. It tends to be softer. They use hops that are called like Kent and East Goldings and Foggles. Those Kent, East Goldings, and Foggle, which sort of tie into the noble European hops. We tend to be hop heads where we love these really bitter, super fruity, pungent strains that we've created. It's interesting. We can get into a whole diatribe about that. But talking about real estate, it's what a booming market we're in right now. Bidding wars all over the place. I think the prices are cooling a bit, but who knows if they're not going to spike again. We don't know because this fourth wave is hovering around. We're not sure. We have the ridiculousness of a federal election here in Canada, and I think it's something that should just not have been called. The minority government was working.
Agree.
They were passing their legislation. Like, who does this in the middle of a pandemic? Different topic, but all these factors can cause things to happen for you in that industry, and it's like and either side. So if one side wins, and they don't do a whole lot about the housing crisis, prices are just going to continue to explode. If the other side comes in and says, we want to build 1 million new homes to accommodate all the future Canadians coming in, plus the growth of the population, it's going to drop prices, but it's going to also give you a massive opportunity to sell a lot more and more houses. So you ultimately kind of win on both ends once you're established, don't you?
Yeah, it's, I feel really fortunate to have chosen a business or career where it's never really going to stop. And as long as you know what you're doing and you're fair with your business and you're good with people, it's always going to keep coming. Like most of my business now is past client and referral at this point, which I love. Occasionally I get, some calls like on the podcast or from a Google review or something like that. But my whole thing is just, always being able to provide people with some type of value and to serve them well in any type of market. And I've been doing it long enough to know how to follow the trends and at least have some type of knowledge to anticipate what may or may not happen. And I can educate them well enough. I mean, and there's a lot of us that can do that, but there's a lot of people that can't yet because they haven't been doing it long enough. Right. So all they can do is, you get the people that stick to it, and then they can take advice from people like myself or other great agents in the city, and just learn. In this business, you definitely don't just get your license and go out and sell. You got to know how to adapt to people's personalities as well at the same time. So
that's true. That's true. It's the same thing in the wine and beer world. I mean, I look at your world and I can name some great realtors. There's yourself, Andre Meadow, who I had on the show. He works with you. He's great. You've got the Ritchie twins who do a good job. They're always out on video and branding. You have Ross Tavel, who did the haunted house videos and stuff, which I still laugh at because, I see her woo in the background of a home as a family enters and stuff. Just creative genius, though. And you guys use media really well. This is what I love. It's like, so in the wine world, hats off to my good friend, Jennifer Simonati Bryan. She's a master of wine. I mean, that's just the pinnacle of education. She was on the premiere show of this whole series. And she's really been a master at using video to teach, to educate, and to showcase her talents. Very charismatic woman, good-looking, presentable woman, but very, very smart and can convey all those abilities and talents. And this is a commonality that a lot of people are able to use these mediums have. You got to be presentable on camera. You got to be able to speak, but you got to be knowledgeable and educated too. And it takes time. And I really say, you got to cross that 5 to 6 year threshold to start really having the flow and starting to see where the patterns. I mean, I'm now a decade in. I think you're like a decade in. People who are really a decade or longer in, they have a much more clear vision of what's going on in the market because you've lived now through 2 market cycles. You've lived through, or 3. You started at one that led up to this one, and then the one that led up to this. We're now into the boom market.
Yeah.
And you've seen your series or share of feast and famine, and that's a skill set in itself to impart, right? And it's also the trust as a client coming to see you. It's like your music business dating back 3 decades. I mean, this stuff just doesn't come overnight. This stuff comes because you constantly worked at it. So, your insight into that industry and your insight into real estate now is quite incredible. They always say, once you got about 10 years in, or you got about 10,000 hours or more professionally in something, you're actually a master at it. Like not the master, but you're now a competent master at that field.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, just going back to music a bit, like when I was doing stuff, I had some help along the way with management with certain projects, but I became a master at, recording people and mixing songs. And I can still do that pretty well, but I'm always still learning like all the new tips and tricks. Like I'm watching YouTube videos all the time when I'm starting to mix my new songs, because I know that there's enhancements or way that I can do things better.
Of course.
It's intelligent. I lost my train of thought for a second.
No, it's okay.
Where was I going with this, Rob? Where was I going?
You were talking YouTube, train of thought, getting educated. And I think
train of thought, being a master
ties into your podcast.
This is what I was going to say.
Skill sets of what you're doing. That's what
I was going to say is I'm happy now that getting into the music business again. I've already hired a great lawyer who's helping me with stuff, and I'm working with some great people. So it's very much by the book as opposed to the seat of my pants like it was a lot of the time. You know what I mean? When I was working on music in Vancouver. So it's way more organized, and I've learned a lot just being in the real estate business as well, right? How to make sure that everything is done well. Yeah.
Cheers to that, man.
Cheers, buddy.
So we're going to wrap this up. I've definitely going to put the show notes of where to find you, your podcast. I'm going to put the link into the YouTube channel of your podcast in the show notes. I may have to email you or just send it to me afterwards. Trying to remember exactly what it is, but I know that you're a busy man. Let's drive some traffic to that. We're going to put the Organized Rhyme rap video at the end of this. I'm definitely going to have my videographer, Mike, add this in. He's a great guy. He's one of my best friends and actually an integral partner in this piece of business. Yeah, I couldn't really do a lot of things without him. Right. So a big shout out to him. Massive shout out to Mike. Love that guy. Been friends for 2.5 decades, and going. So Greg, you've been a great guest. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been a tremendous show. Happy hour, as they would say, skull. They would call this pivo in the Czech Republic. I believe that they would say sociable in the East Coast. That means you cheers, have a toast.
And in Bulgaria, you say nastrave.
Nastrave. Ladies and gentlemen, whatever you decide to do, have a terrific day. This has been a sensational episode with the great Greg Campbell, aka MC Pin, Organized Rhyme, Panda Realty.
Blue Panda Realty, Rob. Blue Panda Realty.
Listen, have a terrific day, ladies and gentlemen. This has been a sensational show. This is Rob from The Drunken Greg.
I wake up thinking of ways I can make up new ways to change the game, gotta shake it up. Life's tough, is it a black or white glove? I'm looking in the mirror thinking, do you got the right stuff? I try to move ahead with ease while the rest get depressed, cause they can't be free. But don't give up, you got the gift, so just get up. Move through the hoops and prove you won't let up. I'm a renegade built for patience. Up and down my life I made some bad decisions. I miss some moments, I'll never get them back again. Yeah, and the world keeps turning, immersed in work at the church of who's earning. The worst is first, you gotta learn it. You better walk that bridge before you burn it. I'm a weapon on stage, created that performative shows in my younger days. I was caught in a bubble that I couldn't escape, and then I got into trouble cause I wasn't afraid. Now you can hit rock bottom when you're living your dreams. Demons will knock at your window, limiting things that you see. You see, time can change in what you believe, and believe me, those things, they just ain't what they seem. And when your head hits the pavement, just get up and wipe those bloody tears up off your face. Make no mistake, there's another day. Yeah, I got a lot of that crazy, but I'm still alive with a wife and 2 babies. A beautiful life and love daily. I'm on that road made of gold and where it takes me. Never put success before satisfaction. And don't fall victim to other people's reactions. You only got one life, so step to it. Shout out to Slick J, let's do this. Remember the past and what you owe it. Put your foot on the gas. Look in the mirror, keep rolling.